A very warm welcome for all. Thank you for joining. And I'm so glad that this kind of conversation can happen with large audience, especially because it's actually with the team that's been there and done the project that we are discussing today. And I don't think in our own worlds, in our working environments, we end up meeting each other peacefully and talking about these projects and actually evaluating the success or the failures or the complexities as they go in about doing the project. I think this is a great platform to do that, and I'm so honored and happy to be able to do that by sharing this space with Siddharth and Jeroen, who have been total partners in every which way in shaping up a fairly complex project as the Tajganj redevelopment. So I'll start with sharing and building up a bit of a context for everybody to see what the project had to offer, and then I think the conversation flows from there on. So, of course, Agra and Taj Mahal were the most complex urban settings as one could ever imagine. So, that was the starting point. We saw the earnest need of kind of looking at this larger city, the former Mughal Empire, and looking at the entire experience of visiting Taj and looking at that as the big heritage. And that really was the starting point on the project of no defined scale, no defined scope, but to first understand the larger realm and the larger complexity, and then really start zooming in. So, for a lot of people who don't know the city, it was really a city of gardens. It was a city that could have been or should have been accessed just with water. And so, even the location of Taj was very strategically set into the larger landscape environment. So, what you see as a diagram is actually a series of about 40 gardens, which almost none exist now anymore. And then, of course, from that setting of hardware to the software of the craft and the industry that where came in, and how this industry really embedded itself in a very close proximity of the exact site of Taj, which is now called Taj Ganj, which was also a quadrangle, and starting from being a place for the camp for people who made the project to becoming a place for the craft, which still somehow thrives in this area as a tradition. And so putting up these centers of living traditions to kind of celebrating the entire ecosystem was a part of the program and the project that we put in. So fundamentally, it was about the visitor experience, how one could build up the beauty of Taj from the experience of starting at a larger platform. It was also about looking at how an old city in the country can actually benefit from an icon and not actually suffer from it. So it was looking at how the urban decay could be, used actually in a positive and brought together as a city, and then using the opportunity of Tajganj to kind of celebrate it and go beyond. And so bringing all the Mughal monuments, especially, but the city at large together because of this project was really the intent. So rejuvenating the city was really a big challenge with this, and of course, one could not have had a better setting to start a project. So we had all kinds of stakeholders built in. The idea was that the office went way beyond looking at it architecturally or as an engineering solution, but looking at it at a much larger scale, at the vision level of what the stakeholders need, what the people experience, and what the domestic local resident of Agra needs and understands. Uh, there was obviously people who have been there in the past, have known and seen what it takes to be in a site like this in India, and then how one could actually work around it and translate it with it still remaining or having its essence with the Taj at the background, but modernizing it for today's time. So looking at a project, these were the whatever you see on your screen practically became our playground. That really was the extent of Taj Ganj and our site. And we specifically targeted all the possible access to Taj Mahal. So on the left is the west gate, which was the main access to Taj, the East Gate, which was also a primary access through the Taj Center, and of course the South Gate, which gets very little use, but that's really the main access to get into the city. To one, it's kind of dividing the quadrangle of the city I spoke about as Tajganj, and so that also had to be used. So even strategizing at a fundamental level of bringing in people from the East and West Gate, but making them exit through the South Gate, ensuring that there is an experience of Tajganj all around as you go and see Taj Mahal, and then you get back to your respective gates and exit out, was a challenge. Was a idea that really had to go through a lot of resistance at every level, but then one could walk our way through. But the reality of discussing things like these are that it's really not about architecture or urbanity. It's about the larger experience of the vision of what you can do for the city when you take up a project of fixing a physical part of the city. And I think that's really critical. So it wasn't just about looking at how the places looked before or after. It's about how the program actually made people deliver an experience to people coming in a better way. And so how architecture really lent to the whole space in a better way. So this really shows how the in and out of the access would work, and this would make even the Tajganj a part of the experience, almost like a museum. So people would, by default, after visiting Taj Mahal, exit out into this Tajganj city, which is small shops and cafes, and it's like a little shop outside the museum. Also gives you a flavor and life of the local culture and people, which I thought was really, really interesting and powerful. Of course, everything had to be reorganized. One had to go through that circulation, but also go through the logistics of that circulation. You had to have the task of pedestrianizing the entire city. You had to have the task of barricading and selecting and sieving the kind of traffic there would be from the local conditions, and then bring in the challenges of today's sustainable ecological solutions, and get your battery rickshaws and get your carts and so on and so forth in for the pedestrian movement. But majority of it would be people on foot, and to enhance that experience on foot, that last mile, as they call it, the last 500 to 700 meters, and making that very visual as well as a comfortable experience to go through, one had to put in the benches and the trees and the spaces with pauses and everything else you move around. So the entire journey, the entire space way beyond Taj became one. So this really was the starting point to the project of making everything one, bringing it all to one level, and bringing in a built vocabulary which in some form reflected on Taj as one entered. To give a bit of a snapshot on the kind of effort, and it's not very hard to imagine because we all have seen our old cities. So on your left, you see pretty much a basic understanding of how the services work in our old cities. It's actually a wonder how they work. So it's really a chaos of sorts, a literal web of cables and wires and services and systems. And to kind of even put that basic out of our way was a challenge. And then to build up multiple layers on top of it in hardware and in software was really the big opportunity that interested us as an office. So, so that's really a very clean, simple explanation of showing the change as a physical space, but actually making a change at a much larger scale, which is what really interested us. And so this whole idea of the city to the cobble, how the cobble became this one big icon, which then actually played its part architecturally in multiple forms, whether it became a light or a furniture or just a piece of information of a signage or just a pavement, was really explored. Another example of how the before and afters and what it takes to pedestrianize, and how you had to keep a possible way for vehicles but keep the whole space as a big pedestrian space. So you had these bollards, but the entire surface was cobbled into one. The materials used, whether it was granite or the local Agra red, and to be able to even bring this reality on, one had to fight up to the Supreme Court. This is a story I love to tell. There were 9 owners to Taj Mahal, from the State Department to the ASI to the center as a tourism destination, to the district magistrate at Agra to the local tourist and traffic people, everybody had a stake into this environment, and to get them to come to this one platform, to remove the footpaths and to remove the roads and actually make it all one, to remove the bitumen but actually put down these cobbles and stones which would actually then stay forever, and you don't need to redo and not pollute this entire space again, was a challenge one had to fight for. And that's the reality. But that experience, that pain, that was completely worth the gain that we had eventually. So you suddenly had all that material gone, and everything was really rendered through one single material, which was a local material, and then one could play with it at every level. So it was about putting the landscape together. It was putting the walkways, the lighting at various levels, whether it was signage or just markers, or making sure it was just security lighting, to putting all the furniture, a completely different level of experience, design, and a museum experience as storytelling, which I would let Siddharth elaborate eventually, to putting the parkings and the basic services and facilities together, to having this very new street lighting ecosystem of bollards, which would actually just light up the surface without any kind of light pollution around Taj, was really a fun exercise that we could work on. So this really was trying to put together all the elements, everything it took to kind of bring it back to a very simple graphic, practically like a Mughal painting, on an explanation of what we were trying to do. We also embedded, every space was embedded with punctuations of an identity, material, a construct that could take age. We knew this kind of a effort would never be repeated. Last 70 years we have never seen development around that area. For all you know, there won't be much change for a long time to come. So one had to be very robust, very clean, very public aware in its design sensibilities. So you had to be minimal and very clean and strong, and something that would reflect today's time but completely understand the past and respect that. So every element kind of played around with that, from a pattern to a material. There were markers which were very graphical to the old lighting system, to the bollard which became the big street light, which would actually highlight the horizontality, highlight the grooves, highlight the cobble, which was very, very important to us. And so one would could very comfortably celebrate the moonlit Taj. I just saw it recently, about a couple of months back, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And to light up the entire city around Taj, but ensure that there is no light pollution that takes away from this beautiful moonlit monument, was a beautiful challenge, and a very interesting exercise for us. And taking care of every possible material, sustainability, all these kinds of elements that had to come as a big part of the project, and then to make sure that they were all working together at one point of time, because you had this little window to get this all initiated. You had a very small window of time and energy where the governments were interested, were also in sync with each other to allow some intervention like this to happen, and to ensure that all this gets done. So your scope, your energies go way beyond being this architect who would sketch and give up a drawing and come on a site visit. You had to live at site. You had to be there every moment to ensure every possible issue was negotiated, every possible problem was you could navigate through your way, and then be able to pull out something which sounds very simple, an old street getting redone, but really becomes a big challenge. So just to do this effort from the left to the right, as you see, is it's an everyday nightmare, and I think all Indian cities need that. And so I'm so glad I can share this story whenever I get a chance, because I think we need to inspire all architecture fraternity, urban fraternity, to really not give up, but go on and give it the best possible we can to make this a reality, because this is a reality in most cities. This is the need in most cities in India. All our old cities are crumbling, and they all need to become these, uh, rather than they becoming these backyards where we turn our back to again becoming our foreground, where we give it all its respect and all its glory back. I think I would really want to introduce at this point and bring in some more voices. So Siddharth worked with me on the entire city identity and what it takes to actually take it from the idea to its fruition, to its reality. And of course, Jeroen was the guiding figure, the man, the vision behind the project in a lot of ways, exploring, giving it its best, because we all understood what it took, what kind of a platform it was for at a global level, and what difference it could make if we could pull this through. So Jeroen was constantly guiding and bringing in that energy, and I think we all lapped it up. So over to you guys.
Thank you very much, Sourabh. As you know, I'm really always glad to work with you and with Siddharth. So it's always a big fun, and we're always have a lot of energy to tackle all the problems. Maybe it's good to start off with an insight you guys had, and that was the insight that when all the work is done, how should the world know it? And the interesting thing is that the highest goal is that people take more time to visit not only the Taj Mahal but also the other monuments like the Red Fort, and therefore there is a concept which is called city branding, which is not that well known in India, but is very well known in Europe, but also in the US. We all know the I Love New York logo and statement. People who have been to Europe probably know the I Amsterdam city branding, and that works very well. And the main insight was, why not exploring if it would be possible to come up with something that comes close to city branding, which can be embraced by everybody. And in a few workshops, working together with also with Siddharth and the Design Factory, we came up with the following idea. And please switch to the screen with the movie, and I will kick it off. Okay. Maybe it's good to give a little bit of context. When we developed this idea, it was not embraced immediately by all the stakeholders, to put it mildly. But on the other hand, when we developed the idea and showed it to them, they almost stole it from us, and that was exactly what we meant everybody to do. So it's somebody everybody can apply within his or her context, within the context of a hotel, in the context of a tourist office, within the context of the city, and this works. And what I really like about this project, that it was part of a bigger plan, and made it a kind of a round case. And I'm truly convinced that design identity is an intrinsic part of architecture, and I hope that everybody all the listeners, all the watchers understand that this is one of the key messages of, I think, today's broadcast. Siddharth, do you want something to add to this?
Yep. So I think broadly the same thing. So I think the challenge here was that how in India we talk about identity where people don't know what city identity is all about. And first to tell them that city identity is not only about that one logo, it is about telling a story that what happened to the city or what was the city all about. So I think to me, the idea was to tell to the city owners that you're going to be doing a lot of storytelling. For that, you need this tool to tell that this is what your city was to the tourist, and this is your city is now and how it is developing. So for that, identity is a tool and logo is a tool, and then how that one logo does the layers of storytelling in terms of what should be the color of the identity, what should be the material which we should take, which is of course red sandstone and marble here because of the site conditions, and how that get translated to the bigger logos, to the wayfinding signages, to the text we wrote. Everything then actually got inspired and rotates around that branding.
Mike, your mic.
Yeah, so I think we can go to the next slide. Probably we have much more to show in this. Yeah, so this is broadly what the city logo was all about. So we took the A for Agra, and then I still remember the crazy night where we all three were thinking that what should be the logo, and we tried at least 100 logos, and then the spark idea came that we were thinking about the Agra starts with A and the end with A itself, and at the same time that we know that Taj Mahal is not the most important thing, and we don't want Taj Mahal to be the most important thing. But Taj Mahal is Taj Mahal. So Agra identity cannot be without Taj Mahal, and through this probably people then will go to different places. So people will come to Taj Mahal and Agra, and then they will go to Fatehpur Sikri and a Red Fort and other places. So that gives the identity, the A of Agra, and the Taj Mahal, which becomes the logo of Agra itself. And then how we refined it to write it in Hindi and English and of course Urdu, and the whole brand exercise. Next. Yeah, and then and we say that everything need to start with A. So this is a promise, a progress, a festival, a mystery, and everything and anything we will talk about will start with this A of Agra and end this at the A itself. And they made these posters which went viral across the city that what is happening. And I remember there's a huge fest which happens, which is known as Taj Mahotsav, and then we did a whole lot branding of Taj Mahal itself, and then. Everybody, right from a shopkeeper to a person who's cutting a bill, had this logo on their facade. So this is we actually inaugurated this logo. So this is a huge A being made in wood right in front of Taj Mahal, and the chief minister of the state that time inaugurated that. And I remember this was 14th of February because it's a special day for Agra and all the lovers coming to Agra itself. And it's a huge logo which was inaugurated by him and still stands there, which is just across Taj Mahal. And then this is how, a simple thing as wayfinding is also inspired with that A. And you see the arrow also. You see that Taj South Gate, and then you see the arrow also is also inspired with that I, with that A. And then on the right hand side, the bench, the carving, everything is that A itself. Next. And then the T-shirts and the tickets and everything. So it was all over the city itself. And these are the bigger A's. So as you go to the Taj Mahal itself, a lot of people walk towards that last 1 kilometer because you are not allowed with your vehicle, and then you just have this e-vehicle to go there. So a lot of people walk, and then what we did was that we created these bigger A's as you walk toward Taj Mahal, and you can get to know the story of Taj Mahal. So people come to Taj Mahal and they get to know the stories through a guide, which sometimes are not that right, not that explanatory. So we thought that we can create something like an outdoor museum as you walk towards the Taj Mahal itself. And then we created this bigger A, of course, in red sandstone and marble. And again, we were talking about that how we need to build something which is there for the next 50 years. We don't know that something like this will happen again or not. And anything and everything, this is a public space. And then too in India, you will see a shopkeeper putting up a stall right in front of it. So it need to be that much robust that nothing can happen to it. And that is how I remember that thinking is one thing, but then how to execute that on site. So what should be the thickness of a red sandstone? What will be the thickness of marble? when we are doing, if you can see the installation here, there are a lot many depths which are plain in stone. So what is that depth which cannot be broken? So we thought that people can break it, people can play with it. So how that text need to be written, how that marble need to be laid, so it is just one surface. So a lot of experimentation happened, and then the more on the material and the robustness of the overall structure, but at the same time, what is the font and how people will see it and love it, and try to understand it, and what is the feeling when they are going towards the Taj Mahal itself. Yeah. Next. Yeah. So, Jeroen, if you want to add something here, if you can see that how these again, out of that one A, the wayfinding, the lighting, everything was punctured in that street, and
Yes.
then you see a lot more things.
Yes. Maybe it's also good to state that the way New York has treated his city branding is through a very static logo, which is only used in print. What I like, if we with Fabrique develop identities, more and more we develop dynamic identities, which create a kind of a unity in variety, and the variety emerges from all the different contexts in which the logo and the identity is applied. And what I really like about what also Design Factory and Archomm did is they even extended it into the physical world with physical representations, and also a very playful application. And I like that very much. And that is for big corporates, it's the worst nightmare to have a playful application. But on the other hand, for visitors, users, consumers, it works really great. So I like that very much, and I think this is it is an example case of how to combine and how to manifest an identity in public space.
Yeah, Jeroen, I also think what it does is that in India, because like you said, it's not so common to build an identity. What it does is that because you have manifested it in various forms and shapes and materials and scales, it kind of subconsciously gets built into you because your eyes are not so used to registering it otherwise. And once you get that ownership, I think that's what is really needed to be able to maintain a space like this. I mean, I went there about a week back, and it's just so nice to see all of it all over again because people have taken ownership and people have really lived it and accepted it. And I think that's why it is what it is, even after 5 years.
Yeah. And you mentioned the word ownership, and I think in transitions in any sector, the factor of ownership is highly underrated, undervalued, and in this case, it worked very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you see these logos on the shop also.
Yeah.
I was standing there a few days back, and they're all still there. Everything works, and every shop, every area is kind of totally embracing the new city center, so to speak, for them that they haven't had for years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
think.
this is
Oh yeah, what
more,
did
I think, about that how.
Go ahead, Siddharth.
Yeah, so it was more about that how people who will come to Taj Mahal now, they need to, just don't stop at Taj Mahal, but need to go to different places. So how they can get the extended hand of going to different places. So this is where we were figuring out that how the a series of monuments which are just behind Taj Mahal can be connected through a sea link, which is a pontoon bridge. So there is a Agra fort, and then there are many monuments here. So that is what the overall thinking was, that how people get connected to Taj Mahal and then go to these monuments, and of course to other places. Yeah, these are different places which are just near there. I mean, when it was designed, maybe when it was all done, everything was near, but then the encroachment happened. and then you see a different city altogether, and you don't know now these monuments are just few kilometers away. So people come to Taj Mahal and then they go back. I see a lot of people, especially foreigners, coming from Shatabdi and looking at Taj Mahal, taking pictures and going back from the same Shatabdi same day, which is such a pity because you have so much in the city itself. So the idea was not. I think what Arcom I remember did as a company was that they never restricted themselves to a problem of just defining that what need to be done at Tajganj, but thinking of the overall vision of the city. That now what's next? Now people are coming to Taj Mahal. They know that Tajganj is done and they will be at that place. But how then Taj Mahal becomes the center, and then you can actually redefine the overall city. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is. I will be very quick because I think we need to get to the Jeroen slide. So this is how again the redevelopment of the whole Agra city, and then suddenly one was Taj Mahal, and then we thought of these monuments, and the whole area was covered, which had another 18 monuments, and then how all those 18 monuments can be connected, and that was actually the plan with the tourism department.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then I think this was beautiful that Jeroen, you were saying something.
No, no, no.
Yeah. So I think, once we visited the site, we realized that there is a good pedestrian way which can connect you all the monuments. So you have these 18 parks, which we saw at the start of the presentation itself, and these 18 parks have something there. You have some monument there. So if you just can go to the other side of the Taj Mahal itself, then you have these pedestrian ways which connects you to all the monuments. So you and this is probably the future which has all been submitted to the tourism ministry, which happens then you see that the whole Taj Mahal and the whole Agra as a different city altogether. You then It's just not one monument, there are 18 monuments in that 5 kilometer, and this is what it is. You can just walk and see all the monuments in a 5 kilometers of a walk. These are the details of the pontoon bridge, that how it is super easy to build that, and it can you can just walk over Yamuna and go to the next site. So I think it is the overall thinking that it is just not the branding, it is the branding, the urban design, the architecture, the material. So how I think the overall design was not done to one silo, it was from broadly every field of design. And these are the three interventions which are there. So which is the Agra Pavilion, which was thought because a lot of tourists are coming and they don't have a place to sit and have a coffee. And then of course the big Agra Mughal Museum, and the Taj Orientation Center.
so it's a great example, this Agra Pavilion, because when we are looking at all the issues people had, the biggest issue was where do they go and eat? They either have to afford a five-star hotel or they have to be practically be on the street. And so there was no mid-level food court of sorts which would really add to the wholesome experience of a full day of coming to Agra. And I think that program then gave rise to a project. And that's, I think, the beauty that if you kind of extend your brief beyond the brief, I think these kinds of opportunities come across.
Yeah.
Yeah, just some of the shots of the Mughal Museum. This is like really a stone's throw from Taj. The scale and the materials are just so much in line with the entire space. Just some reflection on what it took to do everything. It's very easy to see things here, but how gradually you end up seeing all the back work, all the energy that gets invested in, making the smallest little detail at the reality, and to be a part of it, to kind of live through it, and live through it as a design process, because every day being a project of a scale that was not really dealt with earlier at every level, from an administration level to a construction level to a design level. I think there was a process, there was a learning, a very, very high learning curve throughout.
If you look at city planning and architecture, you can look through many different lenses to the challenge or the problem. Right? I mean, there are always a lot of requirements. There are limitations from a budget point of view. And you can look through the lens of the users. You can look through the lens of the of several stakeholders. You can look through the lens of the government. And what I really liked about this project and also some other projects we're doing is that you look through the lens of the identity, how to make it a one complete, total, coherent experience. And I think that is quite a unique one because often the lens of all the requirements is so dominant. It all gravitates to dealing with the requirements and the limitations, while it is much more exciting to look through the lens of the opportunities.